Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary with a knife video, and today I've got a very budget-friendly offering, and this knife is one where you get a lot for the money you're spending. This is a Real Steel H6. Now this is the special edition with the textured G10 and the G10 backspacer. This one happens to have the black coated blade. Most of the comments will be the same as for, there are a couple different versions of this. You can get it in, plain flat-handled G10. You can also get it in a stainless steel frame lock. And you can also get it with a flat ground blade instead of a hollow ground blade. Now, you guys know very well that I definitely prefer a hollow ground blade over a flat ground, so there wasn't really a lot of consideration there. I will say this, when I got this, the satin version was sold out, so I probably would have gone with a satin blade instead of the black coated blade, but the coating has actually held up pretty well. I don't know, I can see a little bit of wear on it, but I don't know if it'll show up on camera or not. So pretty impressed with the coating overall, and I don't really have any complaints about that. Now let's add a couple more things by way of introduction here. First, I want to give a shout out to Warriors and Wonders, great Canadian knife retailer. The other shout out that I want to give is to Seven Ready. He's got a really cool YouTube channel where I watched the review of this knife, or his review, and that was one of the things that finally got me to pull the trigger, even though I've been looking at a couple of Real Steels. The other one that I'm looking at, and I think I will get eventually, is the H9 Taken. Looks like a really cool blade. It's very large, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. They only have it at Knife Center right now, and the shipping to Canada is pretty exorbitant from Knife Center, so like $18. So it'd be a $60 US knife, which is like an $85 hit in Canada. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I may purchase it and have it shipped to a friend in the US, or anyway, I have that knife on my list, and you'll probably see a review on it here shortly, but I just haven't pulled the trigger yet because of the shipping cost kind of holding me off on that. So let's go ahead and finally get into this knife itself. And I will make some comments about Real Steel in general, because I've been watching and reading with some interest, and let's leave this as the last point of introduction. Everything that I have read or heard about Real Steel has been very positive. Okay, they seem to be putting together very, very well-built knives at a pretty reasonable price point, so you can't really complain too much about that. All right, the other thing I will say is you seem to be getting, at least in my opinion, you're getting a lot of knife for your money, okay? You're getting blade steel and a level of quality that's probably one or two steps above the $40, what you normally see for a $40 price point, which is what these usually run. Okay, so size and weight on this. This knife is a great size and weight for me at 8.5 inches, and it's kind of just under 8.5 inches, 4 3/4 inch handle, and 3 5/8 inch blade, and it's, so the numbers are right there. A lot of websites list the blade on this as 3 3/4, so I'm like, I measured a couple times and I tried to see where they're getting that from, and I really don't see that. And I'm even being a little bit generous at 3 5/8. Okay, so that's what I'm going to call the size on this one. The handle, of course, is 4 3/4. It's fairly thick here. It's it's textured G10, and it's really, really nicely profiled. So I will say this one is very comfortable in hand. And if you're looking at one of these, I would recommend the special edition with the textured G10. I find it extremely comfortable in hand, and I'm going to say that it's a step up over the flat-handled G10, and a lot of places sell them for the same price. So it's like you may as well get the special edition with the layered G10, and for the same price. Pretty cool. The weight on this is a little hefty, 5.64 ounces. Now that weight is, although it is heavy for the size of this knife, it's pretty understandable, guys. Look at the G10 backspacer. There's a lot of G10 here. Just so you know, you probably can't see this on camera, but the lanyard hole here is actually through that G10. So the G10 is like coming quite a ways forward, meaning there's a lot of material here. In addition, you've got fairly thick slabs of G10 on the handle. The liners are milled out, they are skeletonized, but there's just so much G10 that accounts for a lot of the weight, and you've got a fairly large blade here. So I think the weight is certainly understandable. That said, I'm still going to call it just a little heavy for what it is. I'd like to see this knife, you know, half an ounce lighter or so. Let's see, so that's size and weight. Let's move on to the blade. The blade, of course, is 14C28N, and a lot of real steel knives, the blade is 14C28N. That is a great, great steel. I've been very impressed with it, and I've got lots of knives, I've got lots of different steels to compare to, and I think 14C28N is very, very good. It's one of those steels that sharpens up fairly easily, but holds an edge better than it should based on how easy it is to sharpen, you know, and that's one of those things. D2 does that as well. You know, S30V holds an edge really well, but it's pretty tough to sharpen. D2 seems like it just takes an edge like that, but then it just holds that edge like crazy. And the same thing I find with 14C28N. It's obviously softer than D2. It doesn't hold an edge as well as D2 does, but compared to how easy it is to sharpen, you know, it sharpens up about like HCR13 MOV or AUS8, but then it holds the edge far better than those steels. So I really like 14C28N, really, really good. Now, this blade, of course, has a hollow grind, which is awesome. I love hollow grinds for EDC. We've talked about this many times before, so I won't rehash all of that, but I definitely think, you know, if you're looking for one knife that's going to be with you all the time, that's going to be just a really good general use knife, I think a hollow grind is a better utility blade shape than flat grind is, okay? And I know Nut and Fancy loves the flat grinds, and because of that they're very popular, but I feel like for a folding knife, for a pocket knife, a hollow grind is superior. Now, there is this nice top swedge, and it is very attractive. I really like the overall look of this blade, and the black coating has held up for me really well. I've done quite a bit of cutting with this, and I can see a little bit of wear, but I bet you it's not even showing up on camera. I did try to clean this blade up as best as I could. I did some cutting with some stuff that had like glue in it, and I think I've got all the glue off, but it was a real pain to clean up before making this video. So that's the blade, and I'm really, really impressed. I guess I should zoom in, but I'm going to hold off on that. Before I do, I'll zoom in and show you this blade in close up in a second. Let me do a couple size comparisons and maybe like competitive options. This knife, I think, can't help but remind me, and probably many people, of the Rat 1. They're very similar in size, they're similar in weight. Obviously the real steel has better steel, and it has G10 over the FRN, which it is superior, okay? And this knife is more comfortable in hand than the Rat Model 1, even though this is still a great knife, and you guys know I love the Rat 1, but this is superior, although you're paying maybe $5 more. If you're paying like $39 for this and about $35 for this, so, you know, just kind of keep that in mind. A couple other comparative knives. The American Lawman would be, you know, a similar price point. Again, it's AUS8 steel, so you're going to get a better steel in the real steel, although the lock obviously is not going to be as strong as a triad lock. One more comparison, just because a lot of people have this, it's a very popular knife. There's the Recon 1. Again, a favorite knife of mine, and of course, you know, the G10 handle kind of compares. So all of these kind of land in that under $100. I know Cold Steel, you know, with the better steel, they're now over $100, but these knives are kind of comparable to me. What I will say is you're getting a really high level of quality with this, probably more comparable to those $100 Cold Steels than to the $40 Spyderco Tenacious or, you know, Rat 1 or stuff like that. All great knives, but what I'm saying is this is around the same price point, you know, around $40, but it's giving you a level of quality that's probably, you know, higher. You know, I would consider this maybe a $60 or $70 knife because of steel and construction and quality levels and stuff. So really good sort of value for dollar on this blade, since we're kind of doing comparisons. Now let's go back. I know I got things a little out of order, and we'll zoom in on this blade and show you before we talk about some of the other features. This way you'll also be able to get a good look at that handle finish, which I'm really impressed with. Okay, so there we go. There's that black coated blade. You can see the hollow grind there pretty evidently, I think. You can also see the thumb set is quite big. Since we're talking about lockup and deployment, let's go ahead and show you. There's the liner lock. It's not a super thick liner, but it's definitely sufficient for anything that you need. You probably, I don't know, let's see. You might be able to see it there if I move slowly that they are milled out or skeletonized liners. You can also see that gear pattern in the G10, which I really like. One of the things that I think is cool about this knife, especially the special edition, is that you're getting a knife that, you know, it kind of looks like a pimped knife. You know, it's something you might see if you sent your Spyderco to a knife pimper or something to redo the G10 handles, and you know, you get this nice gear pattern. So it's kind of like getting a pimped knife, only it's coming straight from factory and it's at a factory price point. So really, really cool. Lockup and deployment on this. Let's go there next, since that's normally what we do. I'll stay zoomed in just so that I can point out a few things. One thing I'm very impressed with is the precision on this. This knife was very easy to adjust to the point where it drops closed fairly nicely. But even though, you know, the pivot is loose enough that I can deploy it quickly and it'll drop closed, it has zero side-to-side play. And essentially that is a function of fit and finish, okay? A knife that is very even, where the washers are even, the steel is finished the same way, you'll be able to tighten that down just right so that there's no blade play, but it still opens and closes easily. If you find you can't do that, if you have a knife where in order to get the blade play to go away, you end up with it being very tight, that means something is not quite perfect, okay? So this knife does really, really well on lockup and deployment. The thumb studs are very comfortable, and you can flick this open. It's going to go out of focus for a second, guys, but let me see if I can show you on camera. You can flick this open fairly quickly and fairly easily, so that's something I definitely appreciate. The lock is, you know, about at 35% or so, which is just fine. You know, it's a good full engagement, but it's not really late, you know, making you think that, hey, this knife is going to kind of wear out over time. I'm not at all concerned about that. The liner is sufficiently thick as, you know, the Rat 1 or a number of other, you know, typical frame locks. So no big issue there with strength. It is quite comfortable, you know, easy to access and easy to manipulate. So that's basically all we have to say about lockup and deployment. Let's go ahead and talk about that handle. I will back off here in a second once you've had a good chance to check this out, but I think you can appreciate the cool, you know, coloring on that and the orange gear pattern back spacer. Certainly all of that G10 and the thickness of it that's required to do the 3D sort of milling here does add weight again, but it's not so heavy that, you know, it's oppressive or anything. Let's go ahead and zoom out and I'll continue to talk about this handle. So there it is again. Handle is very, very comfortable. I really like the 3D machining on the G10. It does add a lot to the comfort level of this knife. The gear pattern really locks it into your palm when you take a sort of a saber grip on this. You know, this portion here is kind of locking into the fat of your hand. Very comfortable, very well done. Okay. The jimping here is very good. It's nice to see jimping that you know, it doesn't tear the skin off your fingers, but if you put a little pressure on it, you can feel you lock right in there, and that's nice to see. It feels like the last few knives I've had, the jimping is just kind of there for looks. So it's nice to see one where the jimping is really well done, and certainly that's the case on this. In terms of ergonomics, very comfortable in lots of different grips, okay? However you might want to use this, I don't think you're going to find any hot spots. This cutout is kind of big enough to be a choil if you do it pretty carefully, okay? You can fairly easily, you could cut yourself if you got going, if you weren't paying attention to what you were doing, but you can choke up on this and it does work fine. And you can see there is a little bit of space there between my finger and the blade, say a millimeter or so. So it's not that I'm actually pushing the fat of my finger right into the cutting edge. So that's pretty well done. Lanyard hole is good. And finally, let's talk about the pocket clip. Pocket clip is basically just functional. There's nothing spectacular about it, but it does have enough space in here, and the retention is about right so that it goes in and out of pocket fairly easily. And that's one of the things, you know, all you want a pocket clip to do is keep the knife in the pocket and not make it impossible to get in and out, and this pocket clip does that. So I don't think we can really say too much negative about that. It does its job and it does it well. It is only right side tip up or tip down carry. There's no option for left side. So lefties are kind of out of luck on this one. The other thing I will point out is about the construction, okay? All of these screws are only one-sided. So there's Torx bits here on the clip side of the knife. If you turn over to this side, they're just flat, okay? I did have a little bit of an issue with this coming loose. I would tighten it, it would come loose, tighten it, it would come loose. Put a little bit of Loctite on here and got rid of that, and that's something I recommend you do with all of your knives anyway. So that's not too big of a deal. Let's see if there's anything that I've forgotten to mention. I think that's everything that I want to say about this. I will say that I can highly recommend this knife. It has everything that you'd want. I'm not a fan of stainless steel frame locks. I think at this price point, you're probably better off to go with the liner lock. You may really love stainless steel frame locks, and so if you do, hey, go nuts. 7 Ready, I can't remember, was your knife stainless steel frame lock or not? If it was, go ahead and weigh in with some comments below, and I'll try to annotate that other review, because it was one of the things that made me buy this knife, so I think it's fair to give credit where credit is due. Finally, just as an overall take on this knife, I think what you're getting here is a lot of knife for a fairly reasonable amount. I think I've seen these on, you know, eBay, and Knife Center has them for like $39.99. That's probably the most consistent place. On eBay, they range everything from $40 up to about $60. So that's a big range. I'm not sure what explains all of that. Knife Center is probably the place to go if you're in the US. Warriors and Wonders is a pretty good option if you're in Canada, or some of those eBay sellers that I mentioned. White Mountain Knives, I think, may have this for $39.99 as well. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think this is a really good knife. I have really enjoyed carrying this, using it. I just find that it really checks a lot of my boxes. You know, it's the right size, it's a reasonable weight. I love the blade shape, I love the hollow grind. The 3D mill G10 with the gear pattern backspacer is, for me, a huge win. So there's just a lot to really like about this knife, and you're getting it all at a very reasonable price point. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.